Good morning, my name is Andy. And I have put my glad rags on today, can you see? Normally I'm in jeans, but we put the glad rags on today. I just couldn't put the kwai. The kwai is too much for me. I was going to put them on and then kick them off, but I couldn't do the kwai things. So it is amazing to be here again and to be on this platform. And you know what? I don't take it lightly. There's something very weighty about standing here and telling you what I've prepared. It feels quite inadequate in a way, knowing that we've got heroes of the faith that stand here in this room. So it's wonderful. So I just want to ask a quick question before I start is, have any of you ever felt a little bit unseen, like invisible? I mean, I think I might want that as my superpower. You know, they always play these games and they say to you, what would you like? And some people say they'd like to read people's minds. I don't want to read your mind. Don't want that. But to be invisible would be quite nice. But when you are invisible, it is revolting. So on Friday, I went to go and collect my license, my car disc license. So I go there and I'm the only one there. And I think, oh, fantastic, it'll be quick. But there is another man standing there that this lady who's helping me is talking to. So she takes my things, and she's talking to him, and she's punching in the computer, and she looks up at me, and it's like, are you dealing with me, or are you dealing with him? Do you not want to? Because you're going to punch some numbers. If you're talking to him, and talking the whole time to him, if you're going to talk to him, then maybe you should stop doing my work. Maybe you should finish talking to him and then talk to me. And what I do is I get mumbly inside. Face stays the same. And I started, and actually want to walk away. I just want to mumble and walk away. So we've been in a situation, but it doesn't feel nice, does it? It's sort of, well, am I invisible? Can you not see me? Should I do something? Anyway, we went to a coffee shop with Craig. This is the two different reactions that you can have when you feel invisible. We stand for quite a long time. There's a big conversation happening with the tellers and a man. Then they talk, and eventually the girl turns around to us and says, okay, how can I help you? So we step forward. We've had a long time to decide what we want, so we know what we want. We step forward, and Craig starts to talk, and she then cuts in and starts to talk to the other man again. So Craig's response is not, it's, hey, here I am, and don't you see me? And excuse me, are you going to finish your conversation and then serve me, or are you going to serve me and then finish your conversation? So two different ways that people react when you feel invisible. But you know, it does go sometimes a little bit deeper than that, doesn't it? Where you could be at a party, you could be sitting here in church this morning, you could be in your office, you could even feel a little bit ghosted by God. Craig preached a message on that. It's a brilliant message. I think you, if you didn't get it, you should get it. So you just feel a little bit invisible. Just a little bit. And maybe and it's not a nice feeling, is it? So I've been going through Brené Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart. And it's a brilliant book. She is such a brilliant writer. Her use of words is just amazing. She says language unlocks everything. If you don't have a good grasp of language, I'm not talking English, I'm talking language. Everything shuts down in your world. So I love the way she uses language. Anyway, she wrote a chapter about loneliness or invisibility. She said, what do you do when you feel invisible? The places you go when you feel invisible. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I started to look at that. And she mentioned 3 researchers that had done a study on loneliness. I mean, I don't know if that's anything I would ever study. For me, it's like, what? Really? You did a study on loneliness? Anyway, but what they found is the following. They said that the odds of dying early from air pollution, 5%. The odds of dying early from obesity comes up a little bit, 20%. The odds of excessive drinking comes up a little bit, 30%. The odds of dying early from loneliness skyrockets to 45%. Church, God was unbelievably wise when he put the church together. When he brought the church together, when he pulled us all in together and said, okay, you're going to be my church now, and you're going to have to get on with you, and 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 he put us all together, and he said, this is my community. I will dwell amongst my people. We have got a job to do. We have got friends, we've got a world out there that 45% of them could die. Literally die an early death because of loneliness. And all we need to do is stick a hand out, pick up the phone, invite them for dinner. And it's happening in the church as well as out there. If it's happening in the church, how much worse is it in your office, in your workplace? So church, now is the time to shine. And it's beautiful. So it's also, what do they say? Que December. What? December, boss. What? Que December, boss. So I'm bringing you a December message. I'm bringing you a Christmas message today. Okay, so my Christmas message today is this. And I'm just going to tell you the words of the angel. When the angel came and he frightened all those shepherds. Remember, the shepherds were terrified. So I'm not going to frighten you today. But what I am going to tell you is to remember 3 things. You don't have to remember more, but these 3 things, if you can go out of here today knowing these 3 things, I'll be a happy person. And it is this. The angel said to the shepherds, I have got good news that brings great joy for all. 3 things. We have it in us because the Christmas message has come and gone, eh? Jesus is no longer a baby. He's no longer in the cradle. He is seated, holy, name above names, royal, amazing. He is above all. So Jesus is there. And who does he choose to dwell with? Me. What do we have? We have good news that will bring great joy for all. Okay, now let's reverse the emphasis. Because the all seems to fade away a little bit. And I think we're forgetting about the all. So we have good news that will bring all. That's the thing that we should be beating with even this Christmas, is that we have good news. It's not just good news. This is good news that will bring joy, great joy for all. For all. So I want to quickly talk to you about 3 stories. When Warren phoned me to ask me to preach, Craig didn't ask me to preach. Because if Craig had asked me to preach, I would have said, no, thanks. I said, no, you can do it. If you think if somebody needs to be, you do it. So he didn't ask me, so Warren phones me in Woolworths. I'm busy shopping, so I'm busy throwing things. I've got 30 seconds to shop. You know, ladies, what it's like. You've got 30 seconds to shop. And Warren's saying, Andy, and I think, why is Warren phoning me? Number one is, why is Warren phoning me? Andy, we were talking in the preach meeting. I'm thinking, he's going to ask me to preach. So where's my response? What's my response going to be? Okay, Warren. Okay. All right, Warren, I'll preach. And then I started reading the book of Mark, because we're in this series of Jesus is. And so I started reading the book of Mark, because that's just like, he's a bit ADHD, I think. You know, one story leads to the next story, next story, next story, next story, next story. And you're just going through the thing of Mark, the Gospel of Mark, and you're saying, wow, Jesus, wow, Jesus, Yeah, and it just is, it's like a roller coaster. By Mark chapter 10, Jesus is on his way to the cross already. It's like, boom, it's happened. So then I just took the book of Mark, and there were 3 stories that just stuck out for me, because I read, and then I started writing my journal. I should bring you my journal. I actually showed Warren, because I have to check with Warren and Donnie if my preaching's all right. So I checked with them, and I said, okay, these are the 3 stories that just stood out. So I'd write the chapter, and I'd write the story that stuck out, and there were 3. And I think it's because of where I've been that I chose these 3 stories. And let me just quickly tell you about those 3 stories, and then I'll go back to them. The first story is found not in Mark chapter 1. I was reading a bit like a Chinese person. So I'm reading that way through the Bible, not that way. So it happens in Mark chapter 10. And in Mark chapter 10, I've got to think about that one first. In Mark chapter 10, Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem. He set his face. That's why I say chapter 10 is when Jesus starts his journey to his death on the cross. So he starts his journey and he's leaving Jericho and he's going off to Jerusalem. And there's a large crowd following him. And on the side of the road, some of you might know this story, on the side of the road, there's a beggar. And he's sitting there and can't see anything because he's blind. So usually when you're blind, you don't see anything. He's sitting there and he's begging. What is he begging for? What do you think he's begging for? Money. No, he's not begging for sight at this point. He's just begging for money because that's how he lives. He lives with people giving him money. So he's begging for money, and then he hears something different. That this is this Jesus that he's been hearing about, that he hears that Jesus is part of this crowd. Jesus is part of this crowd. So he starts to shout. And he doesn't say, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. He starts to shout, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And I know that he said it more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. You know, like your children, Mom, 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 Mom. And I want to change my name. Mom, Mom. This man was sitting on the side of the road shouting, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Because remember, he couldn't find Jesus in that crowd. He couldn't pick him out. And what did the crowd do? The crowd are following Jesus. So these are the people that are not close to Jesus, but they want to be around him. They want to be like him. There's something amazing, blah, blah. And what do they say to blind Bartimaeus? They turn around, they say to him, be quiet. You know, like you do with your child, Mom, be quiet. And blind Bartimaeus, or one person in the front says, she's never said be quiet to her children. She must be an angel or something. So blind Bartimaeus, he could have listened to the crowd at that moment, but he didn't. His response is very interesting. His response is, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. He gets louder until eventually Jesus stops and he says, bring him to me. Come on over, Bart. Come on over. And he asks him, he says, what do you want me to do for you? And blind Bartimaeus says to him, I want to see. And he was healed. So that's the first story. Second story is in Mark chapter 5. So we're going backwards. I know. It's okay. We'll be all right. Mark chapter 5, Jesus has just crossed over in a big storm. Not the one that he walked on water in. It's the one where he fell asleep and the disciples were a bit miffed. That one, that story. That when Jesus crossed over the sea and he was sleeping. He gets out. And Mark chapter 5, verse 1 says that he got out. I'll even read it here. So they arrived at the other side of the lake. When Jesus climbed out of the boat, a man possessed by an evil spirit, not by one evil spirit, but by many evil spirits, came out to meet him. So it carries on to say he came out of the tombs. That's where he slept at night, is where they buried their dead. So he was a cave dweller. He was out of his mind. He was strong. He just snapped chains. Whenever they tried to tie him up, he used to snap the chain. So he was strong. He was out of his mind. Maybe we would say he was insane. Maybe we'd say he's a little bit depraved. Maybe we'd say, man, don't go near that guy. And in fact, the villagers all refused to be anywhere near him. So he was out of his mind. People were scared of him. He was a cave dweller. It also says, very interesting, that day and night, night and day. You got that song, eh? Yeah. He wandered among the burial caves and in the hills, howling. Now, I don't know if you've got any friends that howl. I don't have any friends that howl. I don't. I've got a dog that howls, but I haven't got friends that howl. Howling and cutting himself with sharp stones. I might know a few people that cut themselves. I might. I might not know that I know that they cut themselves because they hide. They might be living in the tombs of the dead. I don't know. But we all know. We might all know somebody who cuts themselves. We might not know that they howl at night. But maybe they are howling at night. You don't want to know that. They don't want you to know that. But they're howling at night. They may be. We think that this is a story just for that times. What do you think happened to the demons? Do you think they just disappeared? That Jesus just said, Kazam, they're finished? No, they're not. They're still around. You may know people who are oppressed and under the influence of demons like this man. Imagine. Maybe you don't know, but Jesus does. Anyway, Jesus goes on to have a discourse, not with the man, but with the demons. And the demons say, hey, don't chuck us out. Don't just chuck us out. And Jesus says, no, you're getting chucked out. And they say, no. Don't just chuck us out. Put us in the pigs. I'm not going there today. I'm not going down a theological discussion about that today, okay? So don't worry. And they said, okay. And they said, the spirits begged. I don't understand sometimes. The Bible is interesting, hey? I don't understand why Jesus obeyed or let the demons have their way. But he did. So the demon said, send us into those pigs. The spirits begged, let us enter them. And so Jesus gave permission. Okay, quick question. How fast does a pig run? How fast does a pig? No, don't say anything. How fast does a pig run? 30 kilometers an hour? Come on, how fast does a pig run? 5 kilometers an hour. 60. This is not a cheetah. I'm talking a domestic pig here. A domestic pig. Do you know I Googled, because I wonder, imagine that sight, because it said the herdsmen were terrified when the pigs ran over the edge of the side, and they ran back to the village, and they got the whole village, and they brought the whole village to Jesus. So it must have been quite a sight. Do you know that pigs run at 17 kilometers per hour? Okay, some of you are sitting there saying, yeah, so what? So what? Okay, so when I was a runner, I was able to do 10 kilometers in 1 hour. And at the end of 10 kilometers in 1 hour, I wanted to throw up. I wanted to vomit. I was like standing by the finish line going, dying. And that's 6 kilometers an hour. So if the pigs, I just put it, do you ever read the Bible like this? If the pigs were 1 kilometer from the edge of, and I'm giving them 1 kilometer because I don't think they were 1 kilometer away, but 1 kilometer off the edge where they just dived all over, there were 2,000 of them. So I've started races with 2,000 people. And for the first 15 seconds, you want to get going, but you're sort of just dragging your feet. Okay, now the crowds go and you can get going. So, but anyway, if they all just charged at full speed, top speed, because they've got demons in them now. If they all charged, it took 3.5 minutes for them to go from 1 kilometer away to off the edge of the thing. It all happened in a flash. But then the villagers they come back and they say to Jesus, what are you doing? And it says here, actually, maybe you can put that up. It says, a crowd soon gathered around Jesus, and they saw the man who'd been possessed by the legions of demons. Have you got that slide? You don't, because I'm going all over the place now. And they saw a man who had been possessed by the legion of demons. Remember, they were the ones that banished him. They were the ones that sent him away. They were the ones that were scared of him. They were the ones that said to their children, don't go there, and hide their children and take their children by the hands if they ever saw that man. Oh, I forgot to tell you the other thing about that man. He was also naked. He was naked. It's terrifying. Just terrifying. He was naked. So no wonder you hide your children from them. And they saw him, and he was sitting there, fully clothed, perfectly sane, and they were all afraid. And then what happens is that the man said to Jesus, he said, I want to come with you. And Jesus said, no. You go into the 10 towns, and you go and preach the good news. Because he had good news of great joy for all. And if you might be sitting here today thinking, but my story, you don't know how bad I've been. I don't know if you are howling, cutting yourself insane, living in a burial tomb. I don't know whether you're there yet, but Jesus sent that man immediately to 10 towns to speak of the good news of Jesus. What's wrong with us? What's wrong with us? What's wrong with us? And so this man was unseen. People didn't want to see him. He was shunned. The third story, I'm going backwards again, remember? Is about the story of the paralyzed man. And it starts in chapter 2, verse 1. It speaks about Jesus was preaching in a house, and the people were pouring in to see him. There was no more room in that house, like in the inn. And these 4 men decided to get their friend, who was paralyzed. They did not have wheelchairs in those days. He lay on a mat. And they took hold of the mat, and they went to see Jesus. They couldn't get inside the house, so what did they do? Somebody who's clever and knows that story, they went up onto the roof, dug through the roof, and they lowered their friend to the feet of Jesus. And Jesus looked at him and said, "Your sins are forgiven." And then there were other people that gave a huge outcry. "Who are you?" In fact, they didn't say a word. Jesus just knew what they were thinking. And he said, "Hey, I know what you're thinking. What's easier to say? Your sins are forgiven, or pick up your mat and walk?" But the very important thing is that Jesus saw the faith, their faith, as that man was lowered down. He saw their faith. So that man there was not one word spoken. But imagine that the eloquence of that action spoke much louder than the words. Because they just, by faith, brought their friend to Jesus and lowered him to the feet of Jesus. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing. Okay, so now we go back to the beginning. Beginning. I don't know how to say that. Marvelous knows how to say it. Beginning. We go back to the beginning, to that first story about blind Bartimaeus. I wonder, will you put up on the screen the little bit, please? It says, Mark chapter 10, verse 51 to 52, it says, "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked. Is it there? "My rabbi," said the man, "I want to see." Guys, I don't know if, number one, I feel like there's that little bending of the knee that he did. He said, "My rabbi." He acknowledged that this is a man that knows more than he does. I think sometimes we sit in our own circumstances and we think we know better than my rabbi. I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I'd better do this, I'd better do that, I'd better not do this, I'd better do that, and then Jesus will love me, Jesus will accept me, or I will be better. If I just did this, then maybe this will happen, and I know better. But it's time, church, that we became a little bit more like blind Bartimaeus, bow our hearts, maybe not our knees, same action, and say, "Jesus, Rabbi, you know more than me." We think we know more than me. But the title of my message, I still haven't put the title up, is Jesus is Omniscient. Jesus is omniscient. Here's a bit of theology for you. I wanted to say Jesus is all-seeing, and it just sounded creepy. So I just thought, okay, let me do Jesus is omniscient. It is a theological word. You can walk out of here today and you can say, "I've learned something today." My mantra as an educator is, teach the children something new every day. So if you're an educator in this room, please teach the children something new every day. But more than that, my mantra for myself is, learn something new every day. So today, just giving you a little bit of learning, and the word, there's 3 omnis that is used for God, and it's omnipotent, which means that He is all-powerful, omnipresent, which means that He's everywhere, and omniscient means that He is all-seeing and all-knowing. So simple. I don't know why they give them such big words, eh? But now you know. Omniscient. Say it. Omniscient. Is it up there? Omniscient. Okay, Jesus is omniscient. Practice. Say it to your friend, omniscient. Just so that you can seem like a little bit theologically sound when you walk out of here. It doesn't come out wrong. Okay? So, Jesus is omniscient. So what Jesus saw in that blind man, what he did also was he jumped up, threw off his cloak, and he ran to Jesus. I think some of us need to do that too. But he said, "Rabbi, I want to see." And he could have said, Rabbi, I'd like some money, please. He was blind. He didn't know anything else. I don't know, he could have said that. But actually, he got down to his real need, and he said, I want to see. And I don't wonder, Urban Life Church, if there's times that we need to articulate what we need. And instead of being all pious about it and saying, oh, dear Jesus, you know what, I'd really like a financial provision. And actually, what your deepest need is not for financial provision, but for some dignity to come back into you so that you can hold your head up high. And maybe it's time, instead of just saying, oh, Jesus, dear Lord Jesus, thank you so much. I'd like some provision, please. Maybe it's time to start shouting on the side of the road. Maybe it's time to start saying, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Maybe it's time to stand up and actually shout out to Jesus. Forget your religious protocol. Forget what social media says. Maybe your doctor's been telling you it's going to be like this all the time. Or social media is telling you something and you're just believing it. What if the crowds had said, be quiet, and he was quiet? What would have happened? What if you're still on your medication and Jesus is trying to pull you? This was the last time that Jesus walked past this man. What if this is the last time you get an opportunity to sit in the presence of God? What if blind Bartimaeus did not know that Jesus was on his way to his death? Blind Bartimaeus did not know that Jesus was going to be crucified. Blind Bartimaeus did not know that Jesus was going to be resurrected. Blind Bartimaeus did not know that his story would be recorded for eternity in his word. But what he did know was that he knew that that man, Jesus, Son of David, could meet his need, even though he was unseen. Even though he was unseen, people passed him by, people passed him by, even though he still knew. And I think we need to, Urban Life Church, we need to start to shout, not at God, but shout to Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me, and meet your need. And you maybe need to be more vulnerable with Jesus, who is your best friend, than ever before. That you need to actually drill down. And maybe it's not just healing you need. Maybe it's not just money you need. Maybe it's a far deeper thing than you need. Blind Bartimaeus needed vision. He needed vision, and not just sight. He needed vision. And I think that he was seen. I'm going to tell you that Jesus is omniscient. He already knows. He already sees you. You're not invisible. We have good news of great joy for all, because he sees all, he knows all, and he wants to meet your need. When we pray in the morning, sometimes it's like, oh, we're doing this again, let's just pray. What if that was you that needs a healthy baby? Would you not be crying out? And maybe we need to get a little bit more heart empathy and cry out and stop telling us to stop doing that. It's a bit boring. It's like 5 minutes, a bit boring. No, it's not. It's vital if your name is on there for finances, if your name is there for job provision. You need to cry out for your friend. Cry out for your friend. Let's not be passive. Let's not be passive. He could have been passive. Blind Bartimaeus could have been passive. Excuse me, tell that person that I need prayer. Tell Jesus I need something. Tell Jesus. Take me to Jesus. Just tell Jesus. He just shouted, shut up. And he just shouted even louder. He just shouted even louder. We need to shout to Jesus louder than social media, louder than what the doctors say, louder than what our friends are saying, louder than what our family history is. We need to shout louder than our family histories. He's come to be a cycle breaker. Come on. Okay, the pig man. Let's go to the pig man. So why did I choose that story? That's an odd story. But you know what? I think I touched on it. We have people sitting amongst us in our church, in our family. You know, you've got that aunt or that uncle at Christmas time. Can I preach it? Preach it! Who is a little bit insane. Who is a little bit. We want to shun them. We only invite them at Christmas because they're wild. They howl. They cut themselves. They live in the caves of the dead. And we shun them. We put them in a place where we don't touch. We're Christians. Look, please don't bring your naked friends to church. Okay? Just give him something. Just give him something to wear. I'm sure the disciples, when Jesus had calmed him down, the disciples said, take my shoes. Oh, what about this outer cloak that I have? You better put that on. Because where did Jesus get the clothes from? And I'm sure the disciples must have given it. The most beautiful thing for me is what Jesus did for that man. And what Jesus didn't just do it for the demon-possessed man. Jesus is still doing it today. What did Jesus do? He changed him. How do we know? Because he was sitting down listening to Jesus. He changed him. A profound change happened to that pig man. A profound change. Do we still have the faith, Urban Life Church, to believe that God can bring about profound change to my uncle? Profound change to my friend, to my drug-addicted friend, to my cutter friend, to my friend who really doesn't even want to know about Jesus. Do we know that Jesus can bring, you can't do it, but Jesus, one encounter with Jesus can bring about profound change. But not only that, Jesus clothed him. And Jesus is still clothing us today, garments of salvation, robes of righteousness. Did we deserve those clothes? Did we pay for those clothes? Did that man pay for his clothes? Did he deserve them? No. But Jesus clothes us. He clothes us. He clothes us with garments of salvation. He clothes us with robes of righteousness. So Jesus changes us. He clothes us. He calms us down. He was shrieking, howling. Those are behaviors that we do in our heads, eh? Do any of you do those? I'm sure I do. The other day, Friday, I stood in the office and I looked at the girls and I said to them, okay, girls, can anybody else see the hurricane around me? By myself. I was there, by myself. No hurricane around me. I stood there, I said, can anybody see the hurricane? I said, there's so much of moving parts all around me. What do I do? Can you see them? I don't even know how to get out of them. And sometimes it's like that in our head when our anxiety is screeching at us. It's screeching at us. Where we're howling. We're howling in our pain. And Jesus comes and he calms you down. And he just calms you down. He sees. He sees. He saw my hurricane. The girls didn't in the office. They just looked at me as if, oh, well, there she goes again. Like I'm insane. Well, bordering. Anyway, Jesus calms us. He calmed the man. If he calmed the man, can he calm me? Yes, he can. Jesus can calm you. And the other thing that Jesus did for this man was he commissioned him. And today is a commissioning day, guys. You don't know it yet. Jesus does not worry about your past. He used that man, he changed him in an instant, he clothed him in an instant, he calmed him in an instant, and he commissioned him in an instant. We want to drag our past behind us and say, oh, we can't go do anything for God because, that's what I used to do. That's what I've been doing all my life and my family. And so we just carry on. And he wanted to go with Jesus. He wanted to say, let me be in the ministry. I'll just be in the ministry. No, you won't. I want you to go into the towns. I don't want you just to follow aimlessly and do that with me. He says, I want you. I've got a commission for you. You can go into those 10 towns. Why? Because he used to live there and there was profound change. He's clothed. He's calm. It's a profound change. And you know what? You're commissioned today. I'm not Jesus. I want to commission you, but I feel like Jesus is doing that. Only you can get in your office and invite people to Jesus. Only you are the one. I can't do it. I can't do it. Why? Warren called for the all-in night. We need you guys to help us figure out how we can get people in your office into the church and to meet Jesus. Not just into the church. We don't need bums on seats. We need people to meet Jesus. We need people to have profound change. We need people to be clothed with robes of righteousness. We need people to be calm. That's what we need them to have eternal life. We don't need bums on seats. But we want to give you an opportunity to make it easy for you to bring your friend. I don't know what goes on in your office. You might be in government. I don't know what goes on in government. I don't know what goes on in ESCOM. I don't know what goes on in any field. But you do. You know what your colleagues need. You know what your families need. We need you to help us. We're in the church all the time. That's what we talk to. We talk to each other all the time. We know what we need. We don't know what you need. Please come. It's a commission. It's a commission. If you come, you can tell us what to do to help you. Bring your friends, to bring that uncle, to bring that auntie. Bring them your Christmas things. So for me, it's a wonderful, that story is wonderful. That unseen, shunned man was commissioned to tell 10, not one town, 10 towns of what Jesus did, the mercies that God had shown. And my last story, the paralyzed man. In July last year, I've spoken a little bit about it, I think in January this year. But in July last year, I was paralyzed. Certainly not physically. I was paralyzed in every other way. Actually, at one point, I found myself on a carpet. I found myself on a mat. And I couldn't get up. Literally, I couldn't get up. I could not get up. The doorbell rang. It was July. I had an under carpet heater under this mat. And I couldn't get up. I didn't know how to get up. I was in burnout. I knew I was in burnout. I'd gone to the people that I thought could help me. I'd gone to the right people to help me. I was on drugs. Not that hard stuff, Chris. I was on drugs, prescribed drugs, medication, drugs. I couldn't do anything. And it wasn't working. I was still paralyzed. I couldn't move. I couldn't get to Jesus. I couldn't pray. I couldn't hold thoughts. I said to Craig this morning when we were going here, he said, "Are you nervous?" I said, "I'm nervous, Craig, because I can't hold, a year later, I can't hold stuff in my brain. I can't remember everything anymore. I feel like some days," and I said it to him when we were in Belita a couple of weeks ago, I said, "I feel like stuff falls off the edge of my brain and I can't hold it. And I can't hold it. It's something that was so deep in me. I just lay there. The doorbell rang one day. I literally couldn't answer it. Connie, my domestic worker who'd been with us for 33 years, came and said, "Andy, you've got to get up." I said, "I can't." Tears just pouring off my face on my mat. I was on my mat. I couldn't get up. She had to tell, it was Gareth at the gate. She had to tell Gareth, "Go away." He said, "Can I bring Amy?" "Don't bring Amy, I can't do anything. I can't talk." I was paralyzed. And just like that man was paralyzed, there might be some of you that are sitting here paralyzed by grief, paralyzed by doubt, paralyzed by your own emotions, paralyzed by overwork, paralyzed by stress, debt. And that man was paralyzed from birth. Well, we don't know, but he was paralyzed. He couldn't move. And his 4 friends, with their faith, came and took one edge of the mat each. And they took him to Jesus. And you know, the one thing for me was that I had friends and I had family that took me to Jesus. Craig grabbed a corner of my mat. Jackie McGovern grabbed a corner of my mat. Rebecca grabbed a corner of my mat. My sisters, one lives in Plet. I don't know how many times a day she phoned me. My mom, my sister that lives far, far away in Joburg. She lives in Cresta. She was visiting me every day. Andy, we'll take you to Jesus. We'll give you faith. Our faith will carry you into the presence of Jesus. I couldn't pray. I told you last time I couldn't praise. I couldn't raise my hands. I felt it was a cruel journey. I'd lost all hope. I felt like God was unkind to me. And I was paralyzed. And my friends came, picked up my mat. They didn't want anything in return. I haven't had to do it for Rebecca. I've never had to do it for Craig. Never had to do it for my sisters. They just picked up my mat and they took me into the presence of Jesus. They prayed over me. Rebecca brought her children to me just so that you're just distracted, Andy. So you don't have to think. You don't have to feel stupid. These kids, they just love you. I'll bring you my children. I'll work here, but I'll bring you my children. Help me get better. I needed those children to help me get better. How did she know that? She didn't. She just brought me to Jesus the way she knew how. And I think, guys, we commissioned, and we may feel paralyzed. Yourself. You need to tell someone. Mine, unfortunately, was such an overt. I was in a leadership position in the church. I had to go to the school and tell them that I couldn't do this. Tash just picked up the mat. She said, Andy, I'll carry this for you. I'll take charge of the school. I went uplifted and I said, Linda, I can't think. I can't help you with vision. I can't help to tell you what to do. We've still got 6 months of the year. I can't. And Linda said to me, don't worry, Andy. I'll take the corner of this mat. Zelda came, took another corner of the mat. And she said, don't worry about bots, Andy. We've got this. We'll take you. We'll pray. They prayed for me. They ran things for me. But I had to be honest. I had to tell them where I was. I wanted to hide it. I never wanted to go anywhere. I said to Craig, do you want to go out? I said, no, thanks. Do you want to see anybody? No, thanks. And we spent a lot of quiet time at home. But he still brought me to church every Sunday, knowing that I needed to go home straight up afterwards. But he brought me to church. Let the presence of God just flow over me. He picked up my mat when I couldn't do it. So we have to be honest. So you might be sitting here today, and I think there is a time. We're going to go back to that song just now about, so worship team, you can come. That song, we prayed prayers of desperation. Maybe you need to get honest with Jesus and say where you are and cry out to him for that need. Instead of asking him to relieve the stress, maybe ask him to make you stronger inside, or to deal with that brokenness, that the reason why you can't deal with the stress. Pray the prayers of desperation. But it's the faith of us. You've got friends, you know them. You can see they're broken. You can see they're struggling. Your faith can bring them to Jesus. Your faith. Just pick up the mat. Extend a phone call. Invite them around for Christmas. Pick up the mat with your faith. Don't expect anything in return. Don't give to get. Give to take people to Jesus, because Jesus is our healer. Jesus is the one that turned around to that paralyzed man, and he got up, he picked up his mat, and he ran out of that room. And I stand here today, I'm walking, I'm functioning, sort of, I'm functioning. And that's because of the faith of my friends. It's the faith of my friends and my family and people who love me, the elders of this church. They carried my mat for me. I think it's time that we look at those 3 stories of those unseeners. The unseeners, the blind Bartimaeus. You need to vocalize your need. You need to be honest. Shout to Jesus. Tell your friends. Shout to Jesus. Shout above culture. Shout above those things. You need to take that shrieking. You need to take the howling. You need to take those things and bring it to the presence of Jesus so he can clothe you, calm you, commission you. And guys, we need to, as friends, bring our friends. We need to, as friends, bring our friends. We need to go to the 10 towns and bring them. We need to pray those prayers of desperation. We need to get them to be standing together with us in this place and crying out holy, standing with them, heroes of the faith. We need to be doing that. Let's stand this morning. It's got so quiet in here. But I think Jesus is ministering. The Holy Spirit is coming and He's landing on you. And He hasn't come to condemn you. He hasn't come to make you feel small. What's He come to do? He's come to calm you. He's come to clothe you. He's come to commission you this morning. He's come to heal you. He's come to give you vision. He's come to give you sight again. Let's pray. Jesus. Just lift up your hands. Jesus. Jesus. Holy Spirit, come. Mighty King. We want to stand. We want to be on that day of resurrection. We want to cry out, holy, holy, holy. We want to do with one voice, shout holy. But we come now, Jesus, and we lift our hands. And we ask you to meet with us. Meet with us where we are, unseen, unseen, unseen. Jesus, come, let's sing together with every single thing we've got. If you need to shout your need to Jesus when the drums are beating. Shout your need to Jesus as the voices overcome you. Let your friends in this house bring you into the presence of Jesus this morning. Let your friends carry you. Let someone take up your mat and bring you into the presence of Jesus